Okay, hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the Two Times Dementia Nurse podcast. I'm Frank.
I'm Gary.
And I'm Tommy.
Two Times, to remind you, is about our initiative to try and raise awareness about dementia and try and help folks through that journey as best we can, based on experience that we've had. And the reason it's called Two Times is in memory of these two fathers who sadly passed away from dementia. So we're looking to try and help people in any way we can and support them, particularly with the post-diagnosis process, to try and support what their journey may be and help them along the way. And we're doing that by interviewing a number of different guests. Today's guest is Steve Johnson, who shares his very personal and emotional experience of how dementia has impacted his mother and his wider family and his experience to date. So, Gary, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, first of all, what we've done with every other episode is provided some stats on dementia, and they're fairly scary. If you look back at March 2024, there was estimated about 20,000 long-stay residents in care homes in Scotland, but that accounted for 63% of all residents in all the care homes. If you take it back to 10 years prior to that, in 2013, there was only 55% of all residents in care homes. So as you can see, it's increasing on a regular basis. The unfortunate thing is, care homes in Scotland within that same 10-year period have actually decreased by 19%. So the sad fact is there's more people getting diagnosed with dementia, they need care homes, but there's less care homes. And on a wider scale, if you look at the UK, 70% of residents in care homes in the UK have got dementia, which is approximately 310,000 out of an overall amount of 440,000. So that's a fairly frightening set of numbers, but obviously it's just to make everybody aware of the scale of this terrible condition. To touch on what Frank said, I met Steve Johnson previously. I've met him a couple of times, so I kind of know his story. It is fairly raw, very personal, but it's just a reflection of his own personal journey. It's different to what mine was with my dad and Tom, his dad as well. But it is a great account of the challenges he's experiencing.
Yeah, I think Steve talks for everyone. Everyone that's going through dementia, we've been through it, we've experienced the same kind of thing. It's good to hear from someone actually going through it here and now, the challenges that they're facing. And we've kind of set this up to hopefully help people along the way, to show you where you can go. The charities like Forget Me Not, we're supporting Forget Me Not at the moment. They do respite and all sorts of good things in the community. And we hopefully help people see where to go when they're in their moment in need. Really, I think everyone needs that bit of help.
So with that, we'll maybe just bring Steve in, and you can tell by the way he talks what impact this has had on him and what it means to him and how emotional it makes him feel. So over to Steve.
1, 2, 3.
Steve, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us. This is Steve Johnson. He wants to come along and share his experience of after his mother was sadly diagnosed with dementia and what that meant for him and his family, and the many challenges that they faced along their journey. And in particular, I want Steve to kind of describe what he calls the 3 phases of dementia, which is what happened pre-diagnosis, the process of getting a diagnosis, and what happened next. So thanks for joining us, Steve.
Okay, good. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for coming, Steve. Just to start with, could you tell us about your family situation just before all this started and how you first started noticing your mum might have needed a bit of help, please?
Yeah, I guess it all started really when, see, my mother is of a generation, my mother and my father, so around there, she's late 80s now.
Okay.
And you notice sometimes that as you feel it yourself, as you're getting a little bit older, there are things that you talk about and things that you might, for want of a better word, moan about. And there was a time where I felt that she seemed to be moaning a lot more, and I just thought, that's mum, she's strong opinion, she's very, very sort of, in a way, she's always been strong of her views. Sure. And they were coming stronger. And I think what in hindsight was happening was what I would probably assume as her filter, she was becoming less filtered. So she used to want to say something and then would think about saying it, wouldn't say it. That filter started to deteriorate over a period of time, and then latterly quite rapidly, where she would just speak her mind and we were kind of like uncomfortable. And then for me, the difficult thing was that discomfort turned to almost anger, because I was like, when I went to see her, I was like, oh goodness me, what is she going to come out with now? Or she would talk about the same thing a lot and I would get quite short-tempered with her. And then when I would be heading home, I'd be thinking, gee, Steve, that's your mum. You shouldn't be getting angry with your mum. But I couldn't help it. And then it was like later on when we realised actually there's something quite wrong with her. And it was around the winter of 2023. And I would get phone calls. So I'd for some reason, and I don't know why, I'd put my business card into a lot of her pockets and stuff like that, just in case she was ever lost.
Okay.
And I started to get phone calls from bus drivers to say, I've got your mum on the bus. She's not quite sure where she's got off. And the trouble was, because it was like November, December, it was dark at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
I would sometimes struggle to think if I got off somewhere that wasn't familiar. And that's when the pieces started to come together, where things were becoming more unfamiliar to her that were used to be very familiar. So she would get off a bus stop, and it didn't help with COVID, because when COVID came, she became very insular. She couldn't go anywhere for a couple of years. Then it got to a stage where she didn't want to go anywhere for a couple of years. And again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I guess that was the early signs where she was going out less. She was mixing with people less, becoming very insular and very, very opinionated and confused. And that was it was quite hard when we reached that stage.
Yeah, it's funny because you're speaking about them changing their habits. I mean, religiously, my dad used to go for a pint on a Sunday. He would go for 12 till 2, and that was him. And he was home, and all of a sudden we said, "You going for a pint?" "No, I'm not going." And so in hindsight, you think something must have happened that stopped him for... He broke his regular habit for whatever reason, and we never found it out. But we just think it's something might have happened, because he would just go for a couple of hours, and that was his highlight of the week, and all of a sudden it just stopped.
Yep.
And it was a shame, because that was gone for the paper, gone for the shop, and gone for a pint. And that was his real habitual.
And they were so routine as a generation. They were very routine. I mean, my dad just died like 25 years ago, and he had like leukemia, and he remember him saying to me in his hospital bed, "If I can't go and get my paper, tell them not to bother." And then when I think about that, I think my mum was on her own for like 20 odd years.
Yeah.
That must, after being 40 or 50 years with somebody, to be then on your own. And you kind of, I mean, I feel very guilty now at times, because I'm thinking, why wasn't I spending more time with her? Why wasn't I doing this? Why wasn't I doing that? And the fact was that I probably couldn't, but it plays on your mind, you know?
Absolutely.
It's funny you mentioned that, and it's bizarre, and it's a tiny wee point, but going for the paper. Religiously, my dad would go for a paper. He maybe go for a P&J in the morning. He would go for the evening at tea time. And then it came into sort of like terrible weather. And I thought I was doing good by saying, right, Dad, what we're going to do is we're going to start getting your papers delivered. So you need traipsing about in the dark, because he would go at 6 o'clock in the morning, at 8 o'clock at night for a paper. So we stopped that and got his papers delivered. And it wasn't like we fell down the line. I thought, we've actually denied him a wee bit of his routine.
Yeah.
It's like, so it's a fine line about trying to do the best and taking away their independence for things like that as well. As bizarre as it sounds, going for a paper was a big thing for my dad.
I know. So just, you got to a stage, Steve, where you thought you need to go and get some help for this. So
Yeah.
get a wee bit more information on how you went about getting a diagnosis, the process, and kind of how you felt about it. As you
That was quite difficult, and you have to bear with me as I get my
Take your time.
Right, so my mum was, there were times when she was being confused, and I'd phoned the doctor, and when I spoke to the doctor, I said, "Look, my mum I'm worried about her. And I explained to her about the missing her stop, being confused a lot. And it was at the time, and it still is there, and without, getting to a judgmental kind of point, it was trying to get through the receptionist to the doctor.
Right.
And we all face that now, and it's been on the media, etc. So I don't want to go down that line too much, but the difficulty that I had was I thought there was something wrong with my mum. She wasn't communicating, wasn't really getting involved in anything. And I said, right, I need to try and get a doctor to come and see her, because there is something wrong. So when I phoned the doctor, and they said she'll have to make an appointment herself. I said, right, she's been confused. She's had a couple of falls. Can someone? And I said I think it was like her 87th birthday in the November on the 4th.
Sure.
And I said, she's not to know, but could you possibly just phone her and say, "Oh, well, congratulations, Bernie, you're 87. As part of your 87th birthday, you get a free health check. My mum would just welcome you in, just to see if we could create an environment." And they said, "Oh, we can't do that without a permission." And then it got to a stage where it was one of these like, yeah, but. And I'm like, And I guess I maybe raised my voice, and I was like, look, for goodness sake, can you just go around and see her? And the receptionist said to me, to get into the system, she either has to get lost and be picked up by the police to get into the system, or she's got to fall, and then when the services get her, she will then be diagnosed and in the system. Three weeks later, she fell, and then she was in the system. And I can't help thinking that if they'd seen her, we could have diagnosed it.
Yeah.
And the cost of a doctor coming out, the consequence of not coming out was my mum was 6 months in hospital, A&E for the breaking of her nose and her face being all smashed and her arms, etc., being damaged. And then she sat in Morningfield House for a number of months while they figured out what to do with her. And I just feel that if I could have booked a doctor's appointment for her, they might have diagnosed it earlier. Not only would she not have suffered, but we wouldn't have spent the tens and thousands on the NHS helping her to get to a stage where, and then we had to section her because she wouldn't get in the ambulance.
See, I think there's big inconsistencies there. And you're saying that for her to get in the system, she would have to have an incident of some sort. So my dad, when he was in a flat on his own, he was cooking in the middle of the night, and the flats were actually abandoned. Somebody phoned the fire brigade. So the fire brigade were there. One of the neighbours had actually said, had phoned the police to say, we didn't know the neighbour at that time, to phone the police to say, listen, there's somebody living below me. I think he's vulnerable and he shouldn't be living on his own. To this day, nobody for the fire brigade or the police has ever contacted us. So there is a gap in the system somewhere with that.
And I totally do understand that when they must get hundreds of calls a day, and what they're trying to do is to say, we've got limited resources, we've got limited capacity, and they're trying to grade on a phone call who they should or shouldn't see. But they are probably also getting calls about people who are genuinely concerned about their family members, but there's nothing wrong with them. So it's not an attack on the medical profession. It's probably an attack on the system, but not on the medical professions, because they were all doing their job and they were all doing within the realms of their capacity and authority, I guess. But that's the bit that's still kind of grates.
It must be really difficult for you, Steve. And obviously very challenging for you to deal with. Once you got into the system, that obviously brought you into contact with kind of whole social care organisation and how are these various agencies work together.
Yeah.
Do you anything to kind of share with that and the sort of people you had to come across and the processes you had to go through to get your mother moving within the system?
Did you get a care manager right away?
Because we had to section her to get her into the ambulance, and that was a challenge in itself, because we were at a house. So I remember it really clearly, because it was on a Wednesday morning that I was about to run a workshop that I run professionally. It was on that Wednesday morning. It was 24 hours. It was the Thursday morning before everyone had turned up, and I spent 24 hours in my mum's house. She wanted to go up to her bed at night, and I slept on her landing, because if she was to wander, she would fall down the stairs. So I slept on her landing. And then when they turned up, we had someone to assess her mentally, someone to assess her physically, and then the paramedics to take her away in an ambulance. And what they couldn't do was to get all those people together. So we had somebody came for an hour or two. They then went away. Somebody else came in and, but where are the people that have just left? Oh, well, they've gone off to a next job. Oh, I need them here, because we've all got to be there together. So it was 24 hours. Meantime, my mum was hurting because of a fall, etc., etc. And I was like, and then the care manager almost had to take us all through it again. And it's not because they are incompetent, it's because the information that they are getting seems to be within the realm of the paramedic have got their information. The mental health people from Cornhill, I think it was, have got their information. And then the doctor has got their information, and there's no way of pulling them together. So when the care manager comes along, they said, have you got a capacity assessment? Oh, I haven't got that. They should have left you a copy. I'm like, well, maybe they should have, but they haven't. And then it was like, and then it turned out, because I wasn't her guardian and I didn't have power of attorney, I had no right to see my mother's information because that was her protected right. So again, I totally understand how they have these controls and measures to stop people who might have, you know, darker reasons to get hold of someone else's information. But it was my mother who was clearly incapacitated. But it took a process before I could get access to her information, which was guardianship, which took another 3 or 4 months. And that's the limbo, you know.
Later on in the series, I mean, we're going to have somebody in from Anderson Bay and the solicitors, and their purpose of coming in is to explain why it's really critical to get power of attorney sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
So they're going to go through the, you know, the do's and don'ts, and I mean, you've explained very briefly there why it's critical. If you haven't got that for something very simple, it's at 3 or 4 months down the line.
I've now got power of attorney for myself, and my wife has already been passed to the kids. Should anything be incapacitated, fingers crossed and all that it isn't, but yeah, it's in place.
So you mentioned guardianship there, Steve. That's someone not familiar with. You explain what that is in a little bit more detail, please.
Yeah. So if a mentally competent person, if that's the right word, assigned power of attorney to a relative or another person, that's them in a clear state of mind saying, should anything happen to me, this person has my full power of attorney to make my decisions and etc. etc. If that's not in place, the system then comes and says, right, okay, who is your next of kin? Because of the relationship and living to the closest, and I was the one most responsible for anything for my mum, I had to then go through a process of being judged competent to look after my mother and make decisions for us. And that was quite a taxing process because in the meantime, my mum was in limbo, I was in limbo. But again, I understand that there's processes and things that have to go through. But it was the fact that if I knew what my mother's wishes were, but because they weren't written down and I didn't have power of attorney, I had to go through a lot of, you know, hoops, I guess for a better word, of explaining how I came to that conclusion.
Right.
Why I think my mum would have thought that. I've got a brother that's in Australia, a sister that's in America, who need to be kept informed, but then they've got to give their permission to say, no, it's fine, that's what we're happy that Steve's doing this. And that just took too many months.
Yeah.
And there were different people that you had to speak to, and it just felt like they didn't speak to each other.
Okay.
And the thing for me that is most alarming and reassuring in the same time is the fact I've now spoken, yourselves included, a lot of people, and there's a reassurance that everybody faces this and you're not alone.
Right.
But the alarming thing is so many people are facing this.
Right.
And that's the challenge. Plus, we may get into it later, but the fact that my mum and dad in the 80s got that own your own council home dream, bought their council house, and when interest rates in the late 80s, I think, were at 14%, I remember my mum and dad doing 3 or 4 jobs to pay a mortgage because mortgage rates were so high. And they always had in their mind, I've got something to leave the kids, I've got something to leave the grandchildren. And now, all of that, this week, I'm selling my mum's house to pay for her care until it runs down to whatever it is, 28 grand or whatever. So it's just that the system, I just feel sometimes isn't there. It's there to help everybody, but it's not an aware system. I felt like I was a number, or I was step 4 in a process that then you have to go over to someone else at step 5. I didn't feel as though there was that arm around you,
Right.
from the people that are there to who genuinely want to help you. But I think the system is the difficulty, you know.
Okay.
I guess with my dad, he worked hard all his life, and he didn't have a great amount of savings. But when he obviously what he had, that was going to be left to the grandkids, and we were in the same with you as well. That it just gradually gets swallowed up.
Yeah.
And I got kind of bitter for a while that a lot of people in the same position that didn't have any savings, and I know everybody's entitled to the same level of care. Everything my dad worked for, and it just went into the system, you know. And I understand money doesn't grow on trees, but you know, surely there's something that can be done about care homes and just being a bit more affordable as well.
Or even raise the limit of what can be left. I mean, with all due respect, and you're quite right, there are so many different people that would think, wow, wouldn't it be nice to have just short of 30 grand to pass on to somebody? But when you've earned and spent years and years and years getting that paid off, and it's to pass down. And we've also got young people, like my children are now looking at trying to buy houses, trying to get settled down with partners, whatever their life choices will be. And we read in the media that it costs 25, 30 grand to even get on the property ladder if you're lucky. Now, I could have had some of that, a contribution that is just being taken up for my mum's care.
No.
And the irony is that when she was in Morningfield House, she was on death's door. We were talking about palliative and late life care. A week later, my mum's sitting up. And we're like, and the thing that really...
State your fine, Steve, that's fine.
that I struggled with was, I wish she'd passed when she was at the point of passing.
Okay.
Because it would have been better for her.
Yeah.
Would have been better for everybody. And the guilt that comes along with thinking it would be
yeah,
better is unbearable at times.
It must be incredibly difficult for you. I mean, really, really hard. So you kind of got to the stage, you've now got your kind of diagnosis. So what was next steps? Was it arrange some care? And
Yeah, and we
how challenging was that, or how easy was it?
well, we went through the whole. There's that, this is a woman who did everything for us as kids. Would give everything up so that she had for her kids. Do we try and care for her, or do we put her in a home? And that put her in a home sounds like, that gets rid of her, and it's the furthest from the truth.
Right.
But it's almost like, well, if she's away, she's being looked after. That's great. But there's that. I'm not seeing my mum.
Right.
I lose her.
There's a stigma with that, but
Yeah, absolutely.
putting them in a home is a horrible,
The horrible term.
Aye.
And it wasn't until I was physically burning out myself
Yeah.
that I was thinking, gee, the home is not just for her. It's to make sure that she is getting care, which is why it's called a care home. Because she's getting the care that she needs. If she needs something, it's there. If I was looking after her, or, if you were to do the cold maths, you might say, oh, well, for £6,000 a month, you could get a 24-hour care in. But that 24-hour carer also needs a break. That 24-hour carer also needs holidays and time with their family. So having her in that home environment means that she is being looked after by a group of people, but £6,000 a month for a Premier Inn type room sounds a lot, but when you look at the medical support,
The infrastructure.
every infrastructure that's there, it's about right.
It's something that from we were at that stage with my dad, I mean, we had a good friend that they'd been on this journey ahead of us, and they'd said to us, listen guys, you're not trained, you're not equipped, and although it's a terrible thing to consider doing, it's going to be the best thing for your dad, and it's going to be the best thing for you. And see, the day that we actually put my dad in the home, even saying putting my dad in the home,
Correct, yeah, it sounds awful, doesn't it?
But we put my dad in the home, and I came home, and I likened it to when you take the kids to school for the first day. It was that same feeling of anxiety.
Yeah.
Once you got home, I felt so guilty and terrible, and pulling myself apart. But see, after a couple of days of getting into the home, it was like, Chris, it's the best thing we could have ever done. But it's just getting over that threshold.
Absolutely.
As well.
So much, Gary.
I guess part of the reason that you're involved in, you're telling us your story, is to try and, get that message across. It's a terrible thing to consider putting mum or dad or grandma into a home, but it's the best thing for everyone.
Absolutely the best thing for them.
Just to kind of finish off, Steve, just thinking of the one or two of the kind of more mundane, almost run-of-the-mill issues you have to deal with, like banks and utilities and the like. Any advice on how best to tackle that?
I mean, firstly, contact them as soon as you can. There are things that you think, well, while I'm trying to sell the house and she's in a home, there are some conversations that you have, and there is a worry about doing the wrong thing. Because if you say, oh, my mum's no longer in her house, she's now in a home, what does that mean about the stuff that keeps the home ticking over?
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, and it's like even trying to get the utility companies to start sending her mail to me so that I don't have to keep going around to her house every so often to find out if there's mail. I go around anyway just to make sure windows are okay and everything's fine. But it's that, and then having a copy of your guardianship or your power of attorney, because you have to share that with them. And I just felt again, it's probably the coldness that I felt of you're dealing about someone who's dear to you, but they are just a name and an address on a form for somebody who's going through an administrative process.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, the thing is, contact the necessary people as early as possible, because pretty much all of them will then say, this is the best way to do it.
Okay.
Don't switch things off right now, but if she's going to run to this, what we'll do is, we'll lower her estimated meter reasons, for example, rather than her being there and everything being on, that it's going to drop down. But then there's also the sort of, managing her account to make sure that all her direct debits are still paid. And if there's a problem,
You get
making sure that I can get involved,
But just to finish off, Steve, have you got one last piece of advice or reflection you'd like to share with anyone that finds themselves in the same position as you were?
Yeah. Don't keep it yourself. Talk to people.
Yeah.
As soon as I thought it was my duty to look after my mother and that it was our situation, but talk to people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is absolutely.
It's great medicine, that getting off your chest and speaking to people as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Steve, thank you very much. It was really
Thank you.
open and honest, sharing your experiences. It sounds like it's been a dreadful journey for you and your family, but thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Thanks for
Thank
coming,
you.
Steve.
Thanks for the
Thanks so much.
opportunity.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
1, 2, 3.
Well, as you can tell by how Steve went about there, this is obviously a very painful and still raw experience for him. He's obviously had a very, very challenging experience over the last few years, supporting his mother and his family through this wider experience. So it's been a major challenge for him, and you can tell by how raw that was. Once again, we are recording this thanks to the OGB Group, and we're here in Sabrosa again using this wonderful facility to record this podcast, and thanks to them for all their help and support. So just like to remind everyone, we've got another event planned, 2x3 at the OGB Tap Room here in British Place in Aberdeen on the 27th of September, and we look forward to welcoming folk to that for at least 2, possibly more fantastic bands, and pretending like the last 2 years' events could be fantastic with lots of people, lots of good music, and everyone having great fun. But back to the more serious note of the podcast, Gary, your reflections.
I think it was a fairly raw and honest overview from Steve about his personal journey. What I took from it was, and I felt a lot of the feelings as well about just certain aspects of it, the actual guilt about having to put your loved one in a care home. That's a terrible experience. Tom, you'll know that as well. I mean, I've got a couple of notes here, and I've written it's terrible, but it's the best thing for them. We've spoken during Steve's part of the interview that it's something that not one of us is trained or equipped for it. So it's something that is a terrible thing to consider, but you have to do it in due course as well. The other things I've sort of taken away from it and noted down is, talk. Try and share your experiences with people. People will happily listen to your stories. They might not be able to help, but it's just somebody to listen to, and you never know, they might be able in a position to help in any way. We don't know about it. And the last thing it was a very, very brave and open talk from Steve. So we really appreciate him coming in to do that. It really was very direct and honest. Tom?
Yeah, no, I think Steve talks from the heart. He's going through it, he's going through a hard time, and I'm sure there's a load of people out there watching this, and you know someone, or you're going through it yourself, and we've been through it as well, so it's kind of why we set this up. And Steve goes on how difficult it is to even get a diagnosis, then care homes and all sorts of things, but I think what came out of it as well is the legal side of things, the power of attorney, guardianship, all that sort of stuff. You never think about it until you need it. So we found that as well, and I think it's good people watching this, maybe it might trigger something. You need to get that in place right away. And on that note, our next guest is from Anderson Bain, and that'll cover how you go about power of attorney, guardianship, when to do it, what you need in place. So I think it kind of follows on nicely from what we're kind of trying to do here. So a very powerful interview there.
I think one thing to mention that Steve highlighted is it's really relevant to mention it. It's the actual any faults that we've discovered in our journey so far hasn't been down to any individuals or anybody involved. It's kind of like the process and the whole system that isn't joined up as well. But
No.
the individuals, whether it's the doctors or the care homes, everybody's doing as much as they can.
Yeah, connected.
They're under resourced and underfunded, but there's just a lack of organisation between them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's a difficult path. You're kind of thrown into it and nobody there's no signposts where you go first. And yeah, you've just got to kind of get on with it. But
And I think part of the thing that I found as well, when you were given like a care manager, I think it was down to perseverance. It isn't going to happen itself. You just got to push and push and push. And I spent hours on the phone because it was just still about COVID time and the councillor still working at home, and you just had to push and phone them every single day to try and get something done with that.
yeah.
I think that was the same with you as well, was it?
Oh, absolutely. You've got to put on a bit of a front and you've got to be a bit of a pest sometimes to get through the system, get through. And it's like you say, it's no one's fault. You just got to try and get in there and do the best you can for your family.
Yeah.
Really.
Right.
Okay, thank you for listening. 2 Terms Dementia on this podcast. See you next time.
No, but what we do next?
What we do next?
I quite like a beer now.
I think we worked up a beer, we've worked up a thirst
I
here.
knew I forgot something. Worked up a beer. Time for beer tasting.
Cool.
And the the sub message to that, as you can see, I forgot about the beer tasting, is you got to take a bit of time to look after yourself, a bit of self-care, because as Steve recognised, this is a long journey. So
Yeah.
we need to look after ourselves, and having a beer with your mates and sharing a laugh is part of it.
We'll see you in a minute with a beer.
See you in a minute.
OGV's finest. Right, beer testing time, Tom.
Okay, this is the time I look forward to.
You do you?
Usually.
So this is another OGV branded beer. It's a whiskey sour and it's called Solitude. And it's how many percent?
It's a nerve jungling 7.5%.
So normally we say this beer isn't a 10. It's definitely not 10.
Definitely
You know,
not 10.
it's a wee bit cloudy.
I'm only allowed 3 scoops.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's 7.5%.
Right, I'll go first.
It is cloudy.
Ooh.
What are you thinking? You got
I'm thinking
can't even see through that.
I'm thinking a rolled up green final.
Oh, aye. I'll look you in the front.
I'll be all in the front.
Yeah.
I'm thinking a wee hint of Jack and Victor.
Oh, yeah.
But definitely there is a
Yeah.
sherbet dab.
I think you said that was enough there. Aye.
On to you.
I'm a bit scared to try this, but Solitude. It's not Tenant.
It's not 10.
No.
It's nice. It's good. It's a bit like if you put a bit of cotton wool and you rubbed it on your eye, but there was a bit of a Brillo pad there as well.
Oh, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's got that slightly windy. It's like the windy morning, I think.
It is it?
Yeah. I'll have one more taste. I'm allowed 3. Oh, it's good. That is, yeah, I quite like that.
It is good. I don't think I could actually hate too many of them, and I like to eat 7.5%.
No.
But they are. It is really nice. But it's another fantastic offering from OGV.
Yeah.
As we said earlier on in the show, we're actually in the OGV building, but we're down the lower part of it, Sabrosa. As you can see, it's a fantastic place. A great surrounding for speaking to wonderful guests and tasting wonderful beers.
Excellent.
And I think that's a bit of wrapping up again, is it, guys?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so it's a good night from me. Definitely after one of these.
Good night from me.
Night for you too. We'll see you next time. Cheers. Thank you.